Hello, crypto world. Welcome to the Chart Historian. My name is Justin, and on this channel, I delve deep into crypto charts, exploring chart structures, fractals, and patterns. In this video, I want to give an update on the XRP chart. I believe XRP has shown us its hand, what it's doing. So in my previous video, or my previous XRP video, I talked about how we are either going to be doing a bottoming structure from the current decline that it has been in before moving up, or we are going to do the small correction before the bull run. Well, for those of you who are wondering what that is, let me show you the big picture real quick. Okay, here is a zoomed out big picture of XRP. Now, XRP has a repetitive macro structure. For those of you who are wondering what that is, so XRP's macro structure includes bull runs, it includes declines that come after the bull run, and then after the decline comes a sideways range-bound time. These three features play out over and over again in a repetitive sequence on the XRP chart. We see over here, there was a bull run, a decline, and a sideways range-bound time. Notice how small this iteration is compared to this iteration. Well, the reason why those differences in size happen is because the timing, the height, and the depth play out unique every single time this pattern or structure repeats. So over here we have another one, a bull run, a decline, and a sideways range-bound time. We're currently working through the sideways range-bound time. We're actually at the very end of it. So this sideways range-bound time I split up into three separate fractals. In fractal 1, part A, price moves up, moves back down. In part B, it essentially goes flat or arches down. This one goes flat right here. We can see that repetitive sequence play out once again in this fractal one, where price moves up, moves back down in part A, and then in part B, it went flat. In fractal 2, there are three basic waves, wave A, wave B, and wave C. We can see that it played out once again over here, this time on a smaller time frame, wave A, wave B, and wave C. And wave C went much higher than it did over here. However, when it happened, this is actually the ruling where it shot up. I was telling everyone, you know what? This is not a bull run. This is going to come back down. And the reason why I knew that is because this is the C wave of the second fractal. The second fractal always has three waves. It looks different every single time. In fact, this is an important point. All these structures look unique every single time it plays out. And the reason for that is, once again, the timing, the height, and the depth. Those being unique to every iteration gives leeway for a fractal to look new, look different, but really it's repeating the same functions. And that underscores what this type of analysis is. This is a study of the functions of fractals. I don't compare this fractal from this random point in time looks similar to what the chart is doing today, so therefore I'm going to use this as a guide. That is not how my thesis works. My thesis works on the basic premise that these structures are repetitive, and each structure has a set of functions that it does. So one can predict what could take place in the future, although I'm limited in what I know about that because I don't know how high it will go. I don't know how it will look, and I don't know the timing or the depth, anything like that. All that is still a mystery, but I do know that after fractal 2 comes fractal 3, and in fractal 3, what does it do? Well, price moves up to a peak, which is part A. It then crashes or declines, which is part B. It then recovers, does a smaller correction, and goes into the bull run. It does that every single time. Every single time, though, it looks unique. So in today's fractal 3, price has moved up to a peak, and even though it has two separate peaks, that's still not an issue. This fractal tends to produce multiple peaks, not all the time, but it is a common repetitive kind of idea that it does multiple peaks. So we see that here. Of course, this is the higher one. It then declines or crashes to part B. I was not sure if this was the low. However, this is one of the things that I am going to talk about in this video, how I believe that this is likely the low, and I feel that we are getting that confirmation that this is the low, and I will delve into that right now. So before I jump to why I believe that, first off, I wanted to say that this move up has resembled several different parts of this structure. So if we were to copy this part right here, this move up and where it goes flat kind of, and compare it to here, it would look something like this. Now, I have matched this to the timing, height, and depth of today's chart, and there are similarities. And the reason why there are similarities and the reason why I chose this is because recent history tends to repeat often. So a chart likes to repeat themes from its recent past. So I knew that we were looking for a move up, and I knew we were looking for a correction because we're looking for a move up off the low, and then it goes into that smaller correction before the bull run. So this does have a lot of similarities. However, since last night, essentially, I realized that this is not what it's doing. At least at this point in time, I do not believe that to be the case. Let me show you another fractal that also is similar. So this is a bull run, a decline, and a sideways range-bound time. This sideways range-bound time takes place in 2015. It goes to the beginning of 2017. It then shoots up into the bull run. Well, if you were to take this third range fractal and copy and paste it onto today's chart, of course, you'll have to match it to today's timing, height, and depth. But once you do that, it would look something like this. Now, there are some differences, but the basic idea is repeating, where it goes flat and then moves up to the first peak, it then declines, moves up to the second peak. Remember how I told you there's multiple peaks many times on this third range-bound fractal? Well, here's an example of that. So it then declines, and all that works fine. What I don't like about what this is doing, and this is typical of these fractals, so it has been following it just fine. Even it has this little dip right here. Of course, it's hard to see, but back in 2016/17, it really dipped far over here. But we still get that same echo in today's third range-bound fractal. So it then bounces down. This is where it begins to deviate, in my opinion. So it hasn't done this bounce. Instead, it's moved up, and it's potentially doing something different. And this has brought some confusion because it has been following it pretty closely. So either we were skipping this part right here, or maybe this was just, skipped. It would have to be skipped, and we're doing something similar to this. And if so, this would be the bottoming structure that I was looking for and I was talking about in my previous video, or something similar to this. But then it moved up so high. This is really out of the range of a bottoming structure. At least that's the way it looks to me at this point. So this was that small correction before the bull run. Now, this, in my humble opinion, has deviated and is no longer following this part of this third range-bound fractal. So what is going on here if this is doing something different? And why did I say that I feel like since last night XRP has shown us its hand, and I believe I know what it's doing now? Well, let's get rid of this fractal. So if we go back to this third range-bound fractal, this is from 2021, and we examine this part right here. That is the recovery from the crash or the low, and the smaller correction before going into the bull run. If we were to copy this fractal and paste it over here, it would look something like this. So it is my belief, as of today, that XRP is likely doing some new iteration of this structure. So this would be the correction before the bull run. Now, this may take time to play out, and it may not play out exactly like this. It's going to be unique every single time it does this. But what this tells me from what it's done so far and how it's followed the basic idea, this tells me that this is not a bottoming out structure. This is most likely the correction that takes place before the bull run. So folks, we have potentially a drop that is going to take place soon. By the time you see this video, it may have already taken place, or it may be in the process of taking place. Now, this drop is likely going to be seen throughout crypto at large. For those of you who follow my Casper videos, this means that Casper might as well decline in the coming days. We'll have to see how all of this plays out. Of course, I could be wrong, and it could just continue to move up. But so far, it has been following this basic idea. And whether it deviates or not, what this fractal tells us is that we are likely in the process of that smaller correction. So once again, what would that mean? So we would have to complete this smaller correction right here, but look how close we are to the bull run. We are close, folks. Once this correction completes, then it really takes off. For those of you who follow other channels that use fractals, they might be using this one. And once again, it is another third range bound fractal. And the reason why it looks similar today is because it is a third range bound fractal. They all have commonalities one to another, and that is because of the functions. They move up to part A, which is a peak. It then crashes or declines, which is part B. It then recovers and does this smaller correction before going into the bull run. Folks, I think fractals should be used in technical analysis, and I'm so glad for all those analysts that do that. This is all I do. I specialize in fractals. I have come up with a thesis that is unique. You're not going to find this anywhere else. I believe it is accurate. It's not a method of how close a fractal looks in the past, and therefore, since it looks close, we can use it as a potential guide until it breaks. In my thesis, I look for functions. Functions do not break. The way it plays out, it's going to be unique. So if you enjoy this type of technical analysis and you're not a subscriber, I recommend hitting that subscribe button. Of course, if you did enjoy this, TA, it'd be much appreciated if you hit that thumbs up button as well. So folks, be on the lookout for a potential decline. And then after that decline, it's going to bottom out, and then it will work on the recovery. At a certain point, it's just going to take off. Once it does that, that will be the official beginning of the bull run. For those of you who would like a deep dive into the coming XRP bull run, on my Patreon site, I have a series of videos that deep dives into the XRP bull run structure. The main thing with my Patreon is really the Discord that is connected to my Patreon. It's a $5 a month subscription for that, but you do have access to that series of videos which deep dives into the bull run structure. The XRP bull run structure is a repetitive structure. It'll look different every time it plays out, but the functions will repeat. This is not financial advice, by the way. I'm not a financial advisor, but I'm so glad you caught this video. I hope you catch my next one. Have a great day, and bye for now.